Hello, everyone. This is Heretical Weekend's number 17, the Ray Comfort Audacity review, and our very own Rungavagairun, who is the belle of the ball this weekend. I'm very excited to talk to him about his interactions with Matt Slick and if he's up for it, if his brain isn't too jumbled up from yesterday, his room with jungle jargon, which is, I hear, like teaching algebra to a chimp, but you know, that's just what I gathered from it. But anyway, how you doing, Gabby?
Good.
You had a very busy week.
Yeah, I had a little extra time. Last night, my wife was working on a paper, so I was like, I'm going to open up a room, and Jungle Jargon jumped in, and we had a lot of fun.
Everybody came running in after. Was it weird to see Fiona and was that Cliff Jumper?
Yeah,
in the same camera? Like I know they live relatively close to each other, but to see them on the same camera sort of like blew my mind. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, it surprised me because they were signed on as Cliff Jumper, and then I was like, hey, that's Fiona there too.
I know. I caught the tail end of that hangout actually, and it sounded like Fiona. Well, firstly, I noticed that Gavagai was pretty quiet, but I assume that's because Fiona was getting into technical stuff regarding trying to teach jungle jargon some things.
Yeah.
I'm assuming no one else in there was like a microbiologist or whatever. She has a
right. Yeah.
So just kind of gave her the ball, let her run with it.
I mean, it's just like when Ozymandias gets into a room and starts talking about philosophy, nobody's going to go like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, I guess I take that back. There are a few people, but they look like fools when they do it. So
right. Like, excuse me, Ozzy, I think you're wrong there. And then, right. And then you're like, ah, shit, someone's about to get a 30-minute lecture. I love that guy. I love Ozzy. I love him. I just can't listen to him. Love him to death. He's a smart guy.
I love to listen to him. I'll play his stuff. Sometimes there's nothing else going on or whatever, and I'll just pop in an Ozymandias discussion where he goes on at length about this or that, or whatever it is.
Definitely, like I always say, he's definitely the smartest guy I can't listen to. I should, but I can't. If it was small bursts, I think I could.
Yeah.
But it's why I did horribly in college. If anyone talks for more than 5 minutes, I start to zone out like almost immediately. I'm like a goldfish that way. So as a recap, Turtle has real life issues, or no, yeah, he has some real life stuff going on, right? He's got some company over, so he'll be sitting this one out.
Yep.
Fox in the Know is working on his upcoming prison sentence, aka marriage.
Ouch.
Joke! It's a joke. He was here. So he's got some stuff going on, and Potato, you know, he's sort of like he sort of comes and goes as he pleases. So who knows where that he's from Finland, right? So
yeah,
you know, who knows what the Finnish are up to. So considering, I think we're the only ones that saw Audacity, correct?
I think Turtle might have watched it, but I don't know for sure.
Oh, well, lucky him.
Yeah.
So for our viewer, we watched Audacity, the new Ray Comfort movie that, you know, I read a couple of things on it. He claims, I read somewhere online, that this could be or should be or probably will be the movie that bridges the gap between homosexuals and Christianity. Have you read any like his little tidbits or any of his little words of wisdom?
No, all I did is watch the film, and that was. It's not even a film. It's just like a little bit of acting with a whole lot of Ray Comfort interviewing people like he does. It's like there's hardly any plot to it at all.
All right. So in the interest of fair and fair movie review, give us the pros and cons, Gavagai. What did you think?
It's terrible. It's an hour long, and it felt like it was 3 hours long. I don't know. And like I said, nothing happens in it. This guy has a dream, and then he has a conversation with the person that he had a dream about, and the dream didn't predict anything. It was completely wrong about the person's life and personal information and things. And then all throughout is interspliced these conversations between Ray Comfort and people who are pro-gay rights, and I think most of them, if not all of them, are homosexuals themselves. And so it was just like, to me, it just really seemed like a way to propagate his stuff, because people weren't watching his videos on YouTube anymore, and so put in something that you can call a narrative, and sprinkle some of his interviews, throughout it, and now you can call it a movie and get people to watch it again.
Yeah. Some of it, here's a good quote from him. It says, IMDb is the go-to place to see if movies are good or bad. Over 1,000 LGBT supporters flooded the site before the movie was released on YouTube and gave it 1 star. This brought the rating down to 3.2. Then those of you who liked the movie gave it 10 stars. This pulled the rating up to 4.9. But then the war began. Around 200 LGBT supporters went in and pulled it back down to a 4.8. I would like to see this go up to a respectable 6 so that people will want to watch it. So in reality, what this movie was a Ray Comfort vehicle to witness to homosexuals, right?
Yeah.
Like it was very obviously done. But a couple things that I noticed, and I touched upon it in my comment section. Do you remember when the dude was in the elevator with those 2 chicks, and they were like, "We're gonna get married," this and that?
Yeah.
Right. And I think one of us made the comment where like they just like all the gay people in the movie or don't really do anything but hold hands and possibly canoodle a little bit, Right?
That's the technical word for it.
Canoodle. I know. Something my parents used to say. Now, this is maybe a sign that I've seen way too many Brazzer videos, but it looked like the start of a porn movie, did it not? Where they're in the elevator. They're like, "We're getting married, Well, let's just try a guy one more time." And the next thing like.
That is not where my mind went during that scene, but okay.
Oh. Yeah, that's where you're like, I can't be the, I may be the only guy that saw it and thought that, but that's kind of what I was. Well, yeah. Anyway,
wishful thinking,
right? And then like I like how evil old white guy was like, lesbians,
Yeah.
And I know it was a dream and all, but it was kind of ridiculous. That's the same kind of cheap analogy or metaphor that Ray uses during his witnessing. And normally he uses I think the airplane. If the airplane's going to crash, the airplane's going to go down and crash, and you have a parachute. You want to give what I mean, and save people. Blah blah blah. Same kind of deal. The acting. I mean, it's a Ray Comfort movie, right? So they're all amateurs, essentially, or very, they're not known. I don't think the acting was horrible per se, but it was extra cheesy. Like, even if they were good actors, which they weren't, the script was so bad that you couldn't help it being bad. Yeah,
well, the whole message that they're trying to get across is so, I don't know what's the word, just formulaic and kind of black and white, and it doesn't. There's no nuance or depth to it at all. Which that's just part of what he's doing. So
right.
Comes with the territory.
I mean, can you, in the beginning of the film where the dude's trying to break into the car, don't you think? I mean, first of all, I'm sitting there and I was like, why isn't the chick calling 911 or like gunning the car in reverse or something? Like she's like panicking, like you know. I'm like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen, right? Wouldn't you gun it, like you know? I don't understand the so the movie is essentially different scenarios where this guy is trying to witness to various homosexuals in his life, and it turns out his friend is gay, right?
Yeah.
The whole time, and it's sprinkled in throughout, and you're right, or Ray Comfort videos, and it's so cheesy how it's done. Like, hey, look at this guy, see how he does it, you know?
Yeah.
And you know Ray is constantly looking for a way to crowbar his fucking good person test into anything and everything. He's as subtle as a fart in an elevator. Like he is, it's so obvious, you know? And I like how they're edited, you know, so even after the interviews, they're like, wow, man, thank you for not being so judgmental. You know, after he just gave him the good person test, which says, hey, by the way, you're not a good person. So, right. I mean, and you don't know this, but, or maybe I mentioned it before, but Ray Comfort is relatively close to where I am.
Yeah, I think you've mentioned that, yeah.
Yeah. Like on any given Sunday or Saturday, I can probably drive 20 minutes to where he's at and see him witness live. It's either him or one of his cronies. So, but it's the same kind of thing. I mean,
right.
The movie was so bad. I'm not even sure. I was considering playing the trailer just in case people haven't seen it.
He's apparently been really like, or at least his organization, Living Waters, has been really litigious and has been flagging things. The Bible Reloaded channel was taken down for a day or two because of it, and they didn't play any actual footage. I think they played some like limited audio, but you know, tried to do it all based on, you know, fair use kind of thing.
Yeah.
And maybe they didn't even do that. I think maybe they were thinking of it. In any case, their channel was flagged, and they intentionally like avoided doing anything that could possibly legitimately be flagged. But unfortunately, you know, they put up a video explaining it all, and like YouTube will take content down and even put strikes against a channel, and it becomes basically guilty until you prove yourself innocent. So it's not probably worth the risk.
Yeah. So other points in the movie that were pointless. The stand-up comedian. Why was he even in the movie other than he may be Ray Comfort's friend?
I don't know. It was really awkward and lame.
I mean, he didn't really do anything that proved that really went along with the point of anything that had to do with the movie at all. Any point, any plot point. He was just kind of there. The only part that really made me angry about that guy is that it allowed Ray Comfort to fucking put Todd Friel in the movie. And that guy is the biggest fucking dirtbag I've seen in a long... I mean, I can't stand that guy. Like, I really can't stand that guy. Like he's up there. Oh yeah. By the way, fuck Arcane Logos. He's up there with that guy in my realm of like animosity. Like I can't stand that guy. But anyway, that's beside the point. Fuck you, Todd Friel. But yeah, it's just another empty plot point. That I mean, really, it was as useless a scene as that armed robbery scene.
Yeah, that was also awkward and just felt so fake.
Right.
The robber just was flailing around, and I don't know, it just seemed really forced and dumb. And then I mean the whole the Christian guy coming to the rescue and then offering, you know, to kind of sacrifice himself. And of course there are two gay guys who are there that are a couple, and And of course, that's an in for him to witness to them. But the whole thing is just so annoying and fake.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And then he knocked the guy out with a can of soup or something, which is awesome. Like, someone made the comment, and it's exactly what I thought of. Someone has their finger on a trigger, and you hit them in the back of the head. It's probably the worst thing you can do. It's literally probably the worst thing you can do. Because chances, I mean, it reminds me of those old Knight Rider episodes where it's like the one-punch knockout, you know? It's like...
Right.
Like, it just never happens that way. More, you know what I mean? He's gonna hit the guy. He's gonna go and then his trigger finger's gonna go off, and he's gonna like blow the chick's brains out. But anyway, it was a really pointless movie. Like we said, it's basically a vehicle for Ray Comfort to put his video clips in, and really kind of pointless all around. And I give it. What, 1 star, maybe 1.5 out of 5? I mean, is it better than the other ones that we've seen? Honestly,
the only redeeming quality is that it is only 50-something minutes long.
That's true. The best part of the movie is when it's over.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So, if we have nothing more to say about that, moving along. So you went on Matt Slick's show.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I've been interested in having a conversation with him along those lines for a while now. I put it off during what is it, Game of Thrones season while that was playing, because his show comes on right during, while Game of Thrones is airing on HBO. So, and then I went on there once, like a couple months ago, maybe just even a month ago or so, and the conversation was all about same-sex marriage, because that Supreme Court decision had just come out, and we didn't get very far because he introduced, some quote-unquote evidence that homosexuality is bad for society or something like that, and we couldn't get past what his source was for that, or whether or not it was a legitimate source. So that didn't work out, and it wasn't what I had in mind. When I was thinking about, I'd like to go on and have a conversation with Matt Slick. The last, what was it, 1 or 2 weeks ago now? I guess it was just last weekend.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was more kind of the kind of discussion that I wanted to have with Matt Slick. So it was at least satisfying in that way that, I was able to initiate a conversation on a subject that I'd wanted to. Now,
I gotta say, you've garnered quite a bit of attention, and as I said in the pre-show, you're our prom queen for this week. If I can give you a little tiara, I would. You did very well.
Well, thank you.
It's kind of hard to tell sometimes, because you'll jump in a hangout and you'll see like somebody come, so-and-so was on Matt Slick's destroying and killing and stuff like that. And then you listen to it and it's like, there really isn't that much killing involved. I think it was, you know what I mean? Like, it's more like a rah-rah for their side kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you actually did exceptionally well. And I say that because it's really hard to deal with that deflection that he does when you're starting to bring up points and stuff, and he, will first start off with, well, you'll try to find out if you're an atheist or not. And then once you say yes, when he gets in a tough spot that he can't answer, he'll deflect and say, but you don't have a standard.
Right.
Instead of actually addressing what your issue is.
Yeah, and it's he goes down the same. I mean, it's the same tactic. It's just a different path. I was thinking about this earlier today. I was rewatching a part of a Trey Jadlow conversation that I had, and we were supposed to, in that conversation, Trey and I were supposed to be talking about Christian hell, and he just can't help himself but go back to this contingency argument and saying, well, are you, what is it? Are you self-existent? Did you create yourself? And whatever. What does that have to do with the subject of whether or not you believe that people will be burned in hell for eternity? They neither one of them can help but take the conversation off of the danger spots where they're in trouble, and try and shift it to places where they know a skeptic or somebody that comes from a rationalist and kind of naturalistic side and viewpoint is going to have question marks and say, well, to be honest, I don't have an answer, but that doesn't make your points valid. Right.
See, the thing with Trey, what always bothers me is if he doesn't straight out answer your question with a question, he'll give you a blurb, right? Like, well, because, self-existent, blah, 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 blah. Do you agree? Right. And then he always ends it with a question. In some form or fashion, and it just gets you off. And then Trey often does it in a very derailing kind of way, where you'll say something about, let's say you're talking about abortion or something, and you'll give your spiel, and then he will come back with some blurb about murdering babies. Is that always wrong? Do you agree? And then it's not actually what you even said. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's completely off top. Not appeal to emotion kind of an argument with a question on the end to a total red herring kind of thing.
Well, and a lot of times they're assuming their argument. It's begging the question or straw manning your position in order to try and get their point. And it's really annoying.
Right. And Matt Slick, okay, so Matt Slick is a special animal because, he claims he has Asperger's, right, which is a whole different subject, and I don't want to get too much into that. But he does look kind of insane, like the way his camera is facing his face. It wouldn't surprise me if he had some sort of personality disorder, just from the expressions that I see. I'm not even making a joke. I know it's coming from me, right? So it's like, oh, fuck. Where's the punchline, But, so we'll just take Matt Slick individually, okay? We'll get to the other fucking morons on that show in a second. So Matt Slick by himself is horrible. Horrible as an apologist, as a debater, and everything else. Now, I don't know enough about that part of philosophy to really, dissect what he's saying per se, like Ozzy would or something like that,
Right.
But I can kind of tell bullshit when I hear it, and I hear a lot of bullshit from Matt Slick,
Yeah. I mean, and toward the end of the conversation, he was throwing this. What was he challenging me? Oh, could I give an explanation for logic? And it's his argument from transcendental argument or whatever for the existence of God, and the fact that he claims that his God has certain properties and that logic has certain properties, and we might agree on the logic part, maybe. But then he's going to say that his God is responsible because they share these properties, and while you're in the mix and these things are going on, it can be difficult to say, okay, well, this is exactly where the breakdown in your logical argument happens. On that particular point, I was able to say, okay, that that's fallacious, and he acknowledged just before I left that saying because they share properties. I mean, that would be like saying leopards have spots and Dalmatians have spots, therefore Dalmatians came from leopards, which is obviously a problematic argument,
Right.
and he admitted that. The one that I had a misstep on was when he said either God or not God can account for the laws of logic. Can you account for the laws of logic with not God? Well, that would be like saying, either Gavagai or not Gavagai can solve differential equations. Can you solve differential equations? And you're not Gavagai, so if you can't, then that obviously means that I can as Gavagai. That's fallacious because you're asking one thing that's not Gavagai when there are a host of things that are not Gavagai, when there are a host of things that are not this deity that he's talking about, including other deities that are proposed, including lots of naturalistic explanations that we may not have fully grasped or understood yet. So just the fact that I, one person, don't have the answer does not mean that his disjunctive syllogistic argument is valid.
Yeah. Now, I was thinking about this during the week: disjunctive syllogisms, true dichotomies, and that kind of thing. Now, two things. One, somebody or people keep popping up every now and then saying that is not a true dichotomy or disjunctive syllogism, because he's referring to Yahweh,
right?
Specifically, right? So he's not just saying any God, or whatever, which is, I guess, a problem.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is a disjunctive syllogism. If I'm mistaken, correct me here, but the two options have to be known. Like if you're at a restaurant and they only serve salad and soup, right? Only. And you say, I want the soup, and they say, we're out of soup. That means you have to order salad.
Well, if you want to order something, yeah.
Right. But that would be a disjunctive syllogism, right?
Right.
Okay, because what he's doing is not a disjunctive syllogism as I understand it. Am I wrong here?
Well, I mean, the fact that he's using God or not God, those are two. I shouldn't even try to talk about this because it's been so long since I've had this kind of logic that I've studied it and been involved with it or whatever. But
I blame Fox because he's not here and he would know this.
Yeah.
Thanks, Fox.
Yeah, great, nice going, Fox.
You're the philosophy guy, dude.
But that's a true dichotomy because it's the thing and the negation of the thing. So it is a true dichotomy. The problem is that we have not exhaustively, talked about all the potential that is contained with the one. And in order for you to say definitively that the not God side is canceled out and that leaves us with only the deity, well, two things have to happen, really. One is that there has to be exhaustive search for the possibility of the not God side. Right. And then two, you have to demonstrate that this deity actually exists, and that hasn't been done either. So,
yeah, see that's okay. So that makes more sense. The not God side is you can't say Gavagai can't explain. Therefore, the whole not God side is like eliminated from the equation.
Exactly.
He's just saying that. Yeah. Okay. So he's just saying because you can't do it, then my side is okay.
And I win by default, right?
I win by default. He's so stupid. He's so dopey. Oh, man.
Well, and then on top of that, he's so condescending. One of my favorite moments this week. Did you catch the very end of Talking Shit Tuesday when he popped in there?
Yes,
that was so beautiful.
Good job, JD Kane, on that.
No kidding. Yeah, absolutely.
That was awesome. He's like,
phenomenal, JD.
You guys are gonna be rude. I'm gonna leave. I don't know. You're much braver than I am because I see that show and I really want to. I really want to just strangle everybody in that room. Honestly, like I just listening to it irritates me to a level that I couldn't, because I already know how the conversation would go. He's had it 1,000 times with pretty much everybody, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
it really is like beating a dead horse. Let me touch upon the cronies for a second. So the most irritating part of that show is not Matt Slick. For me, it's Matthew Fournineteen, and with a side note of Biblethumpingwingnut. So Matthew Fournineteen to me is the consummate bully, right? He was the have you seen I don't know if it's Billy Madison or one of the Adam Sandler movies where the dude's like the bully, he's like, "Oh, Doyle rules." You know what I'm talking about?
I haven't seen that, I don't think.
Okay, it's like this kid, and he just like there's a scene where he's like just chucking like those dodgeballs at kids, and every time he slams one, he throws up his hands and he's like, "Oh, Doyle rules." And he's like some fat redheaded kid, you know, like Len is the consummate keyboard tough guy. He is like he's despicable more so to me than Biblethumpingwingnut, because to me, for someone that has been bullied, you know, for a long time growing up, I sort of have this innate asshole radar now. He's the kind of guy that like pants people or shoves them into lockers. I'm telling you right now, I'm basing this on nothing but my own experiences. But he's a jerk for jerk's sake, right? It's not that he even jumps in and says, "Hey, you know, let's stay on topic" or something, or it's just Gavin guy, you're being annoying, man. I'm about to boot you, and I'm like, look, fucking, you know, computer Rambo. I'm all just chill out. I'm talking to Matt Slick. You know what I mean? Like he just sort of jumps in like he's some fucking bouncer at a nightclub, thinking he's all badass and stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, fucking Len, you're not badass, dude. Just fucking chill out, shut the fuck up, or get your own show, dude. So, moving on to Biblethumpingwingnut. If I'm going to school references, Biblethumpingwingnut is like the chubby kid that sort of smelled that no one really kind of liked, you know? Kind of odd, maybe. Took a trapper keeper to school a couple years too long. Biblethumpingwingnut is the kind of guy to me that needs to, you know, it's like finally I'm accepted. You know what I mean? Like he's like, he's just happy to be part of a group. And so he hosts this thing. You know, he chimes in every now and then, you know, under the guise that he's controlling the room, I guess. But he really is like a Matthew Fournineteen with less ball sack. You know what I mean? Because Len is rude and, you know, obnoxious, but he'll speak up. Whereas Wingnut just kind of comes in with that voice where he's like, you know, this person, we're just going to get rid of them. Shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
He's just annoying. And I think Rappaport is the kind of person that I would avoid and not want to have around my children. He's just odd to me if I had children, which I don't. And I'm pretty sure the guy with the eye patch is Sloth from the Goonies, but I haven't made a complete analysis of that yet. I see him on his head looks like a potato. He has I don't know what's much more to say about that guy. I don't see him.
No offense to our potato.
No offense to our potato. Our potato's cool. So that's my dissection of those guys. They're idiots. But yeah. I mean, you're the one that had to.
Surely they realize how sad they must be, because none of them, they used to do their own stuff, and now all they do is sit behind Matthew Slick and cheerlead and boo when someone they don't like is on there. I mean, they've got nothing to contribute whatsoever.
Right.
That's really got to be a sad existence for them.
It's no content at all. Hey, you know, Wingnut and Len, I got a question for you guys. If you ever listen to this show, when one of you speaks, does the other one immediately wrap their mouth on Matt Slick's dick? The guys just take turns, like, so when Wingnut wants to speak, he takes his mouth off Slick's dick, and then Len just jumps on. Is that how that works? I'm just curious. But anyway, So you actually had direct experience with it. How did that affect you during that interview? Did it anger you? Did it get you frustrated? Were you able to ignore it?
Yeah, I was pretty much ignored them. I mean, like I said, they're not contributing in any way. I almost, when at one point Len says, "Oh, you're being obnoxious," I wanted to say, "Do you really think so?" Because I didn't feel like I was, and I was kind of trying to self-monitor to make sure that I didn't like come across as too attacky, but yet still being able to hold my own in the conversation. And the other thing that I kind of regret is that I did let Matt Slick carry on down the path that completely led away from the topic I was there to talk about. But I've strayed from your question. But yeah, that was really the only point when I even was tempted to interact with any of them. Just they have absolutely nothing to contribute there.
Yeah, what's frustrating to me is we've had a lot of people in our community go on that show, and I can't for the life of me figure out why. I know, and I mean that honestly now. This is, I know I talk a lot of shit, but this is like one of those things where this isn't like a jungle jargon conversation, which is already a waste of time, but fun, right? But I see good people going into that room being treated like shit, and it pisses me off. No more than if someone treated, like if you were where I was and someone was treating you like shit, it would piss me off. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it was kind of like when people used to have those conversations with Cy. It's almost like they want to solve the puzzle, or they want to show him, or they want to make some headway. Because I can't imagine going in there under the idea that you're going to have an honest conversation. So what is the motivation to going into a room where either you're going to get booted, muted, heckled, and not really get your points across?
I mean, for me, my purpose is, one, I think I can do okay enough so that it's clear that he is dodging, that they are manipulating the conversation in ways to purposefully avoid the subject that I'm trying to press, and I could have done better with that, but I think I did a acceptable job with that. And two, if nobody's willing to do it, then they are there saying we're the champions, and no one can even touch us because we're so good. And I think that's kind of a danger in a community. It would. I mean, it's. I think that like the Atheist Experience show, they probably have some grounds to say that, but they don't. I don't think that Matthew Slick and his crew have the tact and decency not to do that. I think they will, purposefully parade around. And I, even before I joined, I don't know if it was this last time or the time before, but they were even talking about that there was this kind of deficit of people who are willing to come in and challenge them. So
the challenge, but what's the challenge really? I mean, challenge them on what? I mean, when anyone starts talking about transcendental gods, I mean, really, what's the point? You just, you know what I mean? It's like,
I understand, yeah. Yeah, but just to even go in and poke at them and say, look, we're not afraid of you. You're full of it, and we're willing to stand up and say so. I think that there's some value in that, and not everybody has to do that, and I don't think that everybody should. There are definitely people that would go in there and make complete asses of themselves.
That would be me. Well,
no, I think you could stand up. You might not be able to present the philosophical side of it. I don't do as well as some of the other YouTubers here might, but we each have our strengths and things. The whole reason that I approached the subject in the way that I did was because I know that this was my own personal narrative about, you know, what it was that caused me to change my mind, and you know, there's nothing that they can say about that unless they can show me where I was wrong, and I'm confident enough in that line of argumentation that I've never come across anyone, no matter how sophisticated their theology and apologetics, is able to say, oh, well, slavery clearly was okay. Here's why. You know, you're left with problems all throughout that, and so you have to say either slavery used to be okay and now it's not, or slavery is still okay, or you know, the Bible is wrong, and it's just not a good place for them, no matter what they try and do with it.
Yeah, so, that's why they have.
For that reason, they deflect and try and take the conversation somewhere else.
Exactly, that's what I was going to say. That's where they go. Yeah, but you don't have a standard by which to judge slavery.
Right. Right.
I think at one point you go, okay, well, your standard, Matt, your standard.
Right. Yeah, yeah, and he just can't do it. He's got to turn the table on and you know, point the fire at me when I'm saying, look, let's say I don't. I mean, we can go that way. Let's say I have nothing. Can you please explain this in a way that makes sense and is rationally coherent? And it's not. So
yeah, the other thing I don't just, it gets on my nerves is this whole accounting. So when they say, you know, I can account for the laws of logic or the logical absolutes, as Slick says, but can you? Why do you have to? Like, why do you? I mean, what is the big deal? I mean, honestly, I mean, it's.
Well, and what they're calling an account on their side is not an account. I mean, you can just as easily say the laws of logic have always been, and that's all there is to it. I mean, that's as much of an account as his account. His saying a God has always been, and that somehow his God is involved, and he's a bit fuzzy on the details there. But it's no better an explanation.
That's what was my second point, is they can just posit a deity and the idea that they describe this as God is logic, or logic comports to the mind of God, as I would say, or something on those lines. Those are all fucking meaningless to me. You know what I mean? Like, what does that even mean? Like,
right. God
is logic. Explain this to me, Gavagai. Give me.
Yeah, well, and until you actually look, you know, it's funny. You know, on the one hand, they want to say that his nature is logic in some sense, whatever that means.
Whatever that means, right?
Yeah, but then at the same time, the very nature of God entails this contradiction that is the Trinitarian doctrine. So anybody that holds to that Trinitarian, and I know Matt Slick does, they completely overlook that aspect. So how can it at the same time contain this contradiction and be the very source of things that say contradictions cannot exist?
Where does it say any of this in the fucking Bible? Like, where do they get any of this? Like, where does it say anything remotely close to that?
To what?
To like it.
Attributing logic to
God's nature, and I mean, this has to be some interpretation, right?
Oh yeah, well, and they'll like, what they do is they go and just kind of paint over the stuff that's there, like, oh, I am that I am. I've heard someone say that, okay, well, that's saying A equals A. That's the law of, you know, the law of identity right there.
What are they, fucking Popeye? Like,
right. Exactly.
It's the Popeye argument. I am what I am. Yeah, that's you know what I mean? Like, it's
retrofitting.
Yeah, I mean, I think I made a video a long time ago about using the Bible as a defense for anything. And when when they start saying stuff like that, I mean, if they deny special revelation, as in like God speaks to them directly, or am I mistaken in that?
I'm sorry. Can you say it again?
Do any of them claim that they get any of this directly from God, or do they say revelation through His Word, which is basically the Bible?
Well,
or is that
most of them, I think, would say that the revelation is, oh, what's the word? I mean, it comes from the Bible. That's the primary source, but that there are occasions or some instances of personal revelation. Most of them would, I don't think, make the claim that that they specifically have received a personal revelation.
Right. So I guess my question is, they have their Bible, whichever one they like, and I'd be surprised if they all use the same one, right?
Yeah.
But then there's also, there's always a question of like, what in the Bible is actually, who actually wrote it, what time they actually wrote it, do we know if it's real or is it an allegory? And then if you read it now, you have to read it and then interpret it and then assume what their intention was when they wrote it. And not counting all the the Bible that was pieced together through history. I mean, why? How do they even get to a point where they can go, "Yep, nope, I read it. It's right here. God's logic."
Yeah,
God is logic.
Well, because they want to say that He's the source for everything, and so guess what? Logic falls into everything. So,
well, that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Someone told me that in high school, where this neighbor kid was like, he said something. He's like a couple years ahead of me, and he said, God is responsible for everything, like your existence. And I said, oh yeah? And I'm like, how do you know that? And he goes, well, you exist, don't you? And I'm like, so, and I swear this is a true story. And I'm just like, I look and I'm like, that's kind of dumb, dude. And I didn't think I'd have to deal with this like 20 years later, where I got people, you know what I mean? Like, his central point was, well, you exist, therefore I win, Yeah.
Well, that's Jungle Jargon's take, right? That's
is it really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's one of the things he said. Even last night in the hangout last night, he was saying, well, I have all the proof and evidence and you have nothing. And we said, well, what proof and evidence do you have? And he said, well, look in the mirror. You exist, therefore God.
Oh my God! Are you serious? I must have missed that. I caught like the last 15 minutes of it, dude.
Well, go back and look at it.
Go back. It's comedy gold.
Yeah, everybody that was watching it was just, splitting a gut laughing.
Yeah, there was a point where I sort of left the room, like not really left the room, but went to the bathroom, and I could still hear it, to get something, and then I hear everyone collectively go, "Oh no!" and they start laughing, and everyone's like cracking up. And I wonder if that was it.
It could be. There were a few of those moments.
That guy's kind of crazy, right? Like, isn't he the guy that claims he's from like the Amazon or something?
He grew up. His parents were missionaries, and he grew up in Brazil somewhere. So he might have spent some time in or around the Amazon region. For all I know, okay. I don't know, but
his parents were missionaries. Oh man,
yeah,
that sucks so bad.
Like, I hope they were more effective than he is.
Yeah, well, dude, I'm like, I mean, oh man, there's just too much to say there. I mean, it's kind of fascinating in the sense that, like, did you grow up amongst like indigenous people when they were out there, like like they bring them with them and stuff, and where they were missionizing, whatever you want to call it,
evangelizing.
Yeah, evangelizing, missionarying. But yeah, because he sounds a little, Jungle Jargon. I don't know where he's from, like what actual ethnicity he is, but he sounds a little downsy to me. You know what I mean? Like, is that wrong to say? He sounds a little downsy.
Yeah, I think that's not the case. I don't think he has Down syndrome.
But I think he's kind of like, like even my girlfriend came out and she said something like is he on drugs or is he drunk or something? Or, just in passing. Like she wasn't even listening to it really. And I'm like, I don't know. I think he's on the meds or something. Like I have no idea.
More than a few people have suggested that he might be on some kind of medication or something. I don't know.
Oh really? Okay. Yeah. I don't follow him enough. There's a line that I can draw with people, and there's a line of dumb. Like, as despicable and as distasteful and as disingenuous as Trey is, I can watch you guys talk to Trey most of the time because I know his antics and stuff, and I can deal with it.
Yeah.
Because, he's not a dumb guy. I don't think he's a dumb guy, like intelligence-wise, right? He has a decent intelligence quotient, if you will. He's completely misguided and a bigot, and and a liar, and it's a whole other host of reasons we can and things we can use to describe Trey Jadlow. Right. But he isn't downsy. Jungle Dog to me is downsy. You know what I mean? Like these kind of people I have trouble speaking to or even listening to. Like Johnny KZJ is a little downsy to me. So yeah. I'm just like, I don't get it. Like I can't. I hear them and it's kind of like, oh, dude, I just want to. It's like that movie.
I miss Johnny KZJ. He's gone missing in action here.
I know. We're supposed to do our Walking Dead show eventually, but with people that you know what I mean? That was your suggestion.
Yeah, that's right.
We will do a show in the future, ladies and gentlemen, called Heretical Weekends, The Walking Dead, I think, or something along those lines, where we will discuss people that came on the scene, made a splash, and then disappeared without a trace, and we may play clips. So stay tuned. All 5 of you, stay tuned. So when you left Matt Slick's show during the interview, did you really have something to do, or were you like, fuck this, I'm out, you guys are dumb?
Well, it was a little bit of both, but I mean, I did need to go. My family was calling for me and stuff, and I'd been on for like an hour. My actual conversation with him wasn't as long as that, but I'd been waiting in the wings, standing in line virtually, and it was time to go. So yeah, but I did insist that I was done at that time, in part because he had just admitted that he was making a fallacious argument. I want to go back. I don't know that I'll do that tonight and make another appearance there to talk further about things. It depends on what I'm doing when that show is on. It's kind of an awkward time for me because I'm usually trying to get ready for the work week and things. But if I'm not doing anything, I might jump in tonight again to try and see if he'll let me carry the conversation further, or at least pick up where we left off. So
damn it! Now I gotta watch that too.
Well,
I have to. No, I have to. You make me. I have to. That's pretty brave of you. It's funny. I do. That was kind of actually one of my favorite parts is when you're like, I gotta go, and for the first time they were like, well, wait a minute, you know what I mean? Like they're so used to booting people,
right?
And on their own terms, that when you actually had to leave, there, it's like, whoa, wait, what do we do? And it was like, I'll see y'all later.
Right.
And then
I'd much rather leave on my own terms than to have them boot me just because whatever. The time before that, when I was on the show, they booted me because I wouldn't let them continue on. I mean, he was going on. It wasn't a Gish Gallop necessarily, but he was just listing all of these things that from this mystery article, saying that homosexuality was bad. Really, the article was just saying sexual promiscuity leads to, increased risk for disease and things like that, which, duh.
Yeah. And wasn't that article from 1985 or something?
Yeah, something like that. Early 80s even, I think. So, but anyhow, yeah, this time I did want to leave on my own terms, and it happened to be at a point when, you know, kind of the planets aligned in the conversation and in reality here in my home. So
Now, when you left, did you feel like you were like, boom, drop the mic, bitches, I'm out? Like, did you feel proud of yourself when you did that? Like, were you like, yeah?
not quite, because it wasn't that big a moment. He'd made a mistake, but it wasn't like I, you know, articulated exactly how and you know, quote unquote destroyed him or something. It was a moment when he admitted, just because he had to, really, that what he said was not reasonable and had serious logical problems with it. So
Well, it was a pretty proud moment, I gotta say. I mean, you know, it even prompted like another hangout, right? Or
yeah,
something.
I think that somebody did like an after show hangout, and I know Len, like, later in the conversation had said that I was intellectually dishonest for leaving at that moment or something like that. Well, what? How so? I mean, and like he's the intellectual giant or something that's there,
Right.
and able to do anything other than just smack talk and you know, mute people and drop their volume. I mean, it's the fact that that comment came from him is so ironic and laughable.
Yeah, and that's one thing they don't seem to get. I mean, that's the part I think that irritates me the most, you know. And I don't have a problem saying they irritate me, because that's probably their goal anyway. But not me specifically, but just people. But this idea that they sit in this ivory tower on this high horse and pass all these judgments on people when they're that way or worse. I mean,
Yeah.
most of the people on the show are very polite. At least the shows that I've listened to.
Yeah.
And then these guys, you know, when Matt Slick wants to jump on his Gish Gallop, you know, everyone gets muted and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then when you don't answer his pigeonhole questions, they boot you. So, or they insult
Right.
you, then they boot you.
Yeah. Yeah. Or I mean, I got muted, and he went on this lengthy rant explaining, you know, quote unquote explaining how, you know, logic and morality and all of this is the only way to explain it is with his deity. And then they unmute and say, so can you answer to that? Like, well, you just said like a list of 10 things, you know, which one do you want me to talk about? You know, and you didn't, you know, he didn't explain any of them. He just listed them off matter of factly. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of I don't know. I can't find the point or motivation to even speak to them. I mean, like I said, I'm glad you guys are in there doing your thing, but it seems like I would just go in there and just lose it. So, you know, I can't imagine me doing very well on that kind of show. I mean, they're the kind of guys that I would ignore walking around the streets. They're yelling on the street corner. And so I can't imagine any good coming out of it. I barely listen to it unless it's someone I know already, you know, like,
Yeah.
and even most of the time I don't listen to it. Like, here's when you know you're a success, Gabba Guy, on the Matt Slick show or any other show, is when Skylar Fiction makes a video of your interaction.
Yeah.
That's when you know you've succeeded.
Yeah, Skylar's great. I was happy that I think I had called out, like, actually live in the hangout, most of the stuff that Skylar pointed out, which says that I did a halfway decent job. If somebody after the fact, with hindsight, is able to look back and point at the things and say, look, this is what he's doing here, this is what he's doing here, and I had, you know, I said, okay, well, that's a straw man of my position. No, you're deflecting, you know, all these different things, and Skylar after the fact is able to, you know, take it in and splice in some commentary and things, and he's pointing out you know, all the same things that I did. He added some other additional content and things too, which is good. But I you know, that that helped me feel a bit better. I wasn't as confident that I had done well, you know. After that, I was, you know, flattered by his praise of my performance there, but wasn't quite so sure myself. So
see, the thing is that it's hard to really figure out how well you did, because you have to sift through all the bullshit. And the way William Lane Craig, they say he's a horrible apologist but a good debater or something like that is what I've heard.
Yeah.
Because he sounds like he knows what he's talking about and he's convincing when he speaks.
Right.
So it's really easy to get lost in that room when you're muted and stuff and have Matt Slick talk over you.
Yeah.
And where you're constantly being put on the defensive. There, you know, the setup isn't fair. It's set up to make you, you know, be constantly on the back pedal, you know, therefore making Matt Slick look better. So to me, they're a fucking giant waste of time, but you know, that's just my opinion. But was it better or worse than your conversation with Jungle Jargon? Because you started a room, you said, right? Just like randomly, or
yeah.
Did you have a topic? What was the topic?
No, it was just chat with Gavagai was the topic.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Now I've since, in posting the video, I've changed it to, what did I call it? Hang on, this is worth. Jungle Jargon explains. Where is it? Fundamentalist Jungle Jargon explains history, biology, the mind, and lots more. Because he hit on all those topics.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, how did you get around the whole existence argument? Because, you know, that's pretty convincing. The whole look in the mirror.
Yeah. Most of it was just laughing at him and saying, you know, look, here's this evidence. But he kept saying we don't have any position because we're skeptics. And we're like, no, that's not how it works.
Wait. Is he implying that, like, because you exhibit skepticism, that you doubt every single thing, therefore you have no position? Yeah,
that's basically what he was saying.
Does he understand that that's not how doubt works?
No, I don't think that he understands that. Which is why he made the statements that he did.
Or anything. Does he understand anything? Jungle Dragon, do you understand anything?
No.
Because I don't understand why they take these terms and they run with it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I've never thought of using, I never thought I would hear naturalism used in such a, as a, you know, like it's a bad thing. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, like a pejorative term or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're just a naturalist and a physicalist, or what does Matt Slick say?
Well, and Jungle Jargon's version of that is even sillier. He calls us object credit givers.
Oh yeah, he's that guy.
Yeah.
Okay, he's popped in. He's replied to a comment or two of mine where he's said something stupid. Like,
yeah,
I'm like, what do you object credit giver? Explain object credit giver to me.
Well, just that he just calls anything material that doesn't have a mind is natural. Oh, and then last night he broke out a new phrase, which was, what was he? He was explaining what mind is. Significantly sequenced. A mind is significantly sequenced.
What? What does that mean?
Right.
What does that mean? You downsy motherfucker. What does that mean?
And of course, Dave S. had popped in just before this, I was just like, oh. So Dave S. is like, no, that's not what a mind is. You don't have any idea what you're talking about. And so Dave was kind of pressing him to try and explain what he was saying a mind is, because, you know, you can't have minds come from things that don't have a mind, is what Jungle Jargon's position was. Although I think that articulated the point more succinctly than he was able to. Yeah. Wait.
Yeah, so what was the explanation about a mind? Like Dave S. is a smart guy, and I think he's still going to school, but I think he already has a degree.
Yeah, I think he's got a master's in psychology, experimental psychology and things. He's a very smart guy.
Jungle jargon is right up his alley. It should be. He should contact immediately for help.
Right.
So try to explain this to me as best you can. This what he said a mind was, because I'm curious, because you hear a lot about this, right? You hear it from apologists all the time. God is a mind. And even there's been a couple of times on the atheist experience where Dillahunty's like, give us. We don't have an example of a mind outside of a brain, right?
Right.
Like, so where are you? What are you talking about?
Right. What is this mind, or
what is this mind? What are you defining as a mind?
How does it work? Yeah.
And how does it work absent of brain?
Right.
Does he have an answer for any of this stuff?
No. I mean, he was pretty much focused. He was focused on human minds and trying to. It didn't. It really. He had no decent explanation for it at all, and it was laughable to hear him, hem and haw over the whole thing. But I don't know. I couldn't do it justice.
Yeah, when somebody, when you say you have a mind, right? I imagine like it's a, when you say a mind, like your consciousness, you know what I mean? Like your perceptions, your personhood, all that stuff, right? Like, is that kind of stemming from the mind?
Yeah.
And would that be a catch-all kind of thing? I'm just talking off the top of my head here. But
I haven't studied this enough to even be able to begin to try and give a decent definition, like,
correct.
From a real psychology kind of perspective or anything.
And there's going to be a difference in definition between just medically, and then, like a medical doctor would give you, possibly from a psychologist, possibly from somebody else. You know what I mean? Like
philosopher, yeah.
Philosopher, right. They're all going to give you like something a little different. But however, in a broad sense, right? I mean, when someone says, a mind, I think of like identity, consciousness, perception, that kind of thing.
Right.
Awareness or self-awareness, whatever. So I get this a lot, this transcendental, this mind, or whatever you want to call it. So he really gave no sort of explanation. It just kind of is.
Yeah, well, one of the things that he said was a mind is a mind.
Oh, okay, well, that explains that.
Yeah, right. I think my favorite interactions with Jungle Jargon from last night's hangout were when he was trying to say that what was it, Neanderthals are humans, or were humans, and because they were able to interbreed with Homo sapiens, and so one of the things that they challenged him on was they said, well, lions and tigers can interbreed, so are they the same species? And he was saying, well, they're all cats. so are all cats the same species? And he was saying, well, you don't know what a species is. This was his challenge to us, and we said, well, we do have a definition for that, and lions are a species, tigers are a species, but they are similar. They have enough similar genetics to interbreed. And I asked him, I said, well, our closest relative is the chimpanzee. I said, we share like 98% DNA with the chimpanzee, and lions and tigers and house cats share like 96% DNA. And you're saying they're the same, thing essentially. So are we the same thing as chimpanzees then, because we share even more DNA with them? And he was saying, well, no, we don't interbreed with them. I said, well, okay, if we had, the potentiality or whatever to actually interbreed with chimpanzees,
that's a
and
trait,
we produced offspring with them, I said, would then we be the same? And he wouldn't answer. He never touched that question. He was afraid of that one.
Of course not. Of course. They really don't think these things through. I really think that it's so ingrained in his belief that humans are special, that they just don't fit into the other categories. That's why those analogies don't work.
Yeah, well, he is one who really submerses himself, I think, in what's the creation website? Genesis.
Answers in Genesis.
Answers in Genesis. Yeah, I think he's all over that because he kept saying, well, there are sources that say all of this stuff, and one of the things he was saying was that the documentation we provided saying that humans and chimpanzees shared 98% of our DNA. He was saying that the methodology that they went about to produce that figure was problematic in some way, and that they had double counted something or other, I don't know, and that it was really 70%. Well, he never did produce that source. I think that Dragnot had kind of dug up something that said something similar to that was, I think, from Answers in Genesis or something like that. So that's what he's into. He only wants to look at stuff that's going to confirm his position, and wants to just completely dismiss anything else.
Yeah, that seems to kind of be par for the course, though. I mean, he that's the Trade Jadlow school of learning. Only read what already reinforces your belief,
right?
And then repost it over and over again.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else that you're going to be talking with this week that we should keep an eye out for, other than Matt Slick, possibly?
I don't have any plans.
Because now we're all just going to follow. You're going to be the new Ozzy if you're not careful.
I'm not anything like Ozzy, and I would say anybody that has any interest in learning things should look to Ozzy, not to me.
I would, but he's Canadian. And you can't trust Canadians, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Ozzy and who's the other philosophy professor? The British guy.
There's a lot.
Yeah. But
here's the part that boggles my mind the most. Okay, so in the great debate community, if you want to call it that, there's definite sides, right?
Yeah.
The side that generally the quote unquote I don't want to say the atheist side, but that side has theists, atheists, PhDs, doctors, scientists, currently in the field, people with actual degrees from universities in philosophy. Also, and then on the other end, you got fucking Matt Slick and Len, Beckel, Ronnie, and none of these guys know their asshole from an elbow. I mean, really, they have like no. I mean, it's just guys that pop around the internet and think they know things.
Yeah, that in and of itself should be telling to these people that they should look at this and say, gee whiz, there's something going on here that the people who really have no ability to articulate their position, to explain why they hold the things that they hold, or to back it up with any real concrete evidence or documentation at all, belong to one group, and the others belong to the other side where they can do all of those things, or at least to a much greater degree. Yeah, and I think for me that was part of my, it wasn't a huge part, but it definitely gave me pause to think, like, what's going on here? I said, if the Bible is right and there's this deity backing all of these people, why don't they have the better answers, the better explanations, the better stronger positions and whatever? It became a raw point for me, for sure.
Yeah, I wish I could say that I don't even consider it an argument from authority, because that's not what I'm doing. But you would think that if you're really interested in facts and stuff like that, that you would go to people that have the education and can possibly explain it to you. And I think the problem is, and I actually heard this from Neil deGrasse Tyson like a month ago, and just kind of stuck with me, but he said that there came a time somewhere along the line where people are misusing the terms, they're turning facts into opinions. That's what he said, or something along these lines. I'm paraphrasing. So, you know, you're running along things where people, like, let's say you have a flat earther, and you go, hey, you know, here are all the facts. Here's all the evidence on why the earth is not flat. And they go, well, here's my evidence, but this is, you know, and that, well, you can have your opinion. I have my opinion. Well, no, that's not an opinion. You're misstating a fact, right? This is no longer, an opinion is, I think chocolate ice cream is the best ice cream. You know, that's right. That's an opinion, right? So when somebody like, when someone like, you know, Arcane Down Syndrome Logos says, you know, well, my evidence is the clouds, and I can see all around. You know, these aren't opinions anymore. You know, to me. But I don't know. I mean, do you see things differently?
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree fully with that. That's yeah, and that's the whole of what Jungle Jargon, and even Matt Slick, who is a much brighter, more educated person, that's what they've got. They've got a whole list of claims that they can throw out there, and they can string them together in ways that might be, you know, when they articulate them with confidence and you know, in a certain order, they kind of sound like they might be on to something, but when you know, poke at it and try and investigate it, it kind of falls apart.
Yeah, that's, you know, even when everyone was up on the Psi 10 Brugenkate, you know, thing from a couple of years back, the whole presuppositionalist thing, and everyone was like all aboard, and there was any given day, every given week, you can find half a dozen debates or conversations.
Right.
Even then, you know, when people were still trying to figure it out and, you know, beat the puzzle or whatever the case may be, even then, just by hearing it, if you were a complete layman, you would just go, this is stupid. I mean, even before you even really learn it, I mean, isn't your first instinct to go, you know, I heard it, and my first instinct wasn't to be like, well, let me think this through. My first instinct was, this is fucking stupid, you know? And
yeah.
But when you cut away all the bullshit, right? All the shell games, all the logical, you know, semantics and this and that. All they got is a claim. At the end of the day, irregardless of how they want to poke holes into, you know, everything, and, you know, you're a solipsist or whatever, they can do whatever say whatever they want. At the end of the day, they have just a claim.
Yeah, and a claim, and then sometimes they'll throw in the threat with it, right?
Oh yeah,
which is always so nice.
Doctor, are you familiar with the good doctor, Gabby?
No. Welcome, doctor.
We always, you know, what's funny is we always seem to get more people in the second hour. I think like 11 o'clock, people may still be sleeping when the show starts. I don't know why. So anyway, well, we'll let him have time or her to settle in. But yeah, so at the end of the day, all they have is a claim, and I find none of this convincing at all. And I don't think I ever really have. As good as a logical argument someone can construct and put together, none of it was ever really convincing to me. It may give me pause to think about some things, you know, but...
Right, yeah, and I think part of the reason I enjoy having these conversations, I look forward to the things that actually cause me to step back and say, well, wait a minute, what's going on here? You know, and that was a huge part of the draw for me when I was in college studying philosophy. There was a whole lot of content there that caused me to say, well, wait a minute. I've taken a lot of these things for granted. What do I actually know? What can I say? How can I defend my position? Is it defensible? So,
when you said you were a Christian for how long? 30 years?
30 years, yeah.
So then you just recently deconverted not too long ago, right?
Yeah, probably about 5 years ago is when I really started having serious critical doubts and issues where I had to say, okay, I really don't believe this anymore.
Was that tough for you?
I mean, it was a path up to that point where I had to give concessions that increasingly grew. So where when I grew up in kind of a fundamentalist environment, I was convinced there was nothing wrong with the Bible. It all made sense. There was it was a seamless and perfect word from this deity. Well, as I got exposed to even like Old Testament literature at a Christian college and things, the professors would expose these problems and issues because that was their job, is to show us what it actually said, in spite of what we might have been taught from our churches and pastors and things. But one of the things I remember in Old Testament literature, we were reading through Exodus, and he was giving his lecture on that, and he was saying, well, here's this list of 10 commandments in Exodus 20, and then you go to Exodus 34, and it's supposedly the same list of 10 commandments, and it's called the 10 commandments there, but it's very different. There are only like 2 or 3 things that are the same. And so, what do you do with that? And the professors would leave it kind of open to us. It was just an introductory course, but and I think he may have given us a couple of different ways that theologians tried to tackle that issue, but there wasn't anything that I can say today that actually said, well, this is the reason, and this is what makes sense. So and there were a lot of things like that, and it's the same in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, that there are problems and issues and things, and ultimately you have to say either I'm just a complete idiot and don't understand anything, or this text just doesn't make sense in significant ways. And so once you start to kind of have that fundamental belief eroded, other things kind of start to fall aside too, and the political views that I had been inculcated with in the fundamentalist church I grew up in, also I started to question those, and even found I think good reasons to not cling to the conservative politics that I grew up with, even within the text. So I was still a believer, but had shifted fairly radically from the very conservative politics that I grew up with to a much more liberal, progressive politics, even as a Christian. So,
do you remember one point in your studies where you were going through, and where you really kind of sat back and you just went like, shit, I don't know, like, or that do you remember a specific point where that seed of doubt just went like boom, like, wow, I can't say that I'm a believer?
So I think there were a lot of points when I realized, man, I've conceded so much ground here. I've given up so much ground. What is left? And I had conversations with professors in my philosophy classes, kind of after the class and walking away, and I realized, I thought this guy was a Christian because he had so many of the virtues that I thought only could come from a deity. He was kind, he was patient, he was caring about the students, and he also was very thoughtful and things. And then after class I said, well, are you a Christian? And I said, do you believe in God? And he was like, what God? Goddamn. and you know, there was a moment there where I was like, huh. Well, so where did he get those virtues from then? If he was, you know, and he was being very flip, and at the time I was like, oh well, okay. I kind of went past it. And as I reflected back, you know, a couple years later, there was that, and then there were the problems with the Bible. It was, but the one moment where it just kind of all fell apart for me. I'd already had a lot of doubts. Was when I was sitting in this kind of adult Bible study class at a church that I was visiting, in part because I was frustrated and having so many doubts. And then they presented the story of Achan juxtaposed with the story of King David and Bathsheba, and these two stories, where the one guy is just a peon nobody who is brutally killed for doing something that really was pretty harmless. He took some gold or something from people that were killed in their massacre of a town, which, you know, is another topic altogether. But and not only he was killed, but all of his wife and family and even their animals. It's just like, what, you know, how is that just? And then you look at the story of David, and he sleeps with another guy's wife. He lies about it. He tries to cover it up. And then he ultimately conspires and has the husband, who is just a mensch, and a very devoted, not only husband but soldier, and you know, just a really loyal citizen for David in the country of Israel. And David has him killed. You know, none of those things are ever okay in pretty much any society. And David gets off pretty much scot-free. He doesn't even lose his throne. And sitting there in this Sunday school classroom, I sat and considered both of these stories side by side. And I said, well, the peon guy was massacred as a scapegoat because of this failed military strategy from the leader at the time, and meanwhile the leader, who's in control, and it wasn't David. The Achan story happened supposedly like 200 years before David was king in Israel, but at any rate the judgments were supposedly handed down from the same deity. And you know, if that same kind of stuff was going down in our society today, we would say, okay, it's corruption on both counts, that the guy who's in power gets away with everything, and the guy who doesn't have any power ends up as a scapegoat and is brutally killed, and there's no justice there at all. And it was at that moment that my eyes just opened, and I said, wow, this is clearly just the work of people. And it suffers from the same problems that we suffer from in society today, but you know, they just happened to have somebody that was supposedly, you know, quote unquote, an authority, and had been given this authority from a deity allegedly, and people have accepted that claim without questioning it, and so they take these stories and say it's got to be just, and if we don't understand it, then we just don't understand justice. So.
Question. Well, that makes sense. So I just wanted to take a moment to welcome Floyd and Doctor, who hasn't actually spoken up yet. I asked, you heard Floyd, I asked Gabby what his deconversion story was, so to speak. Do you have one? Like, or was there a certain point in time where you said to yourself, wow, I just don't believe this anymore?
Well, I was always a skeptic. I was raised liberal Presbyterian, so I was allowed to, I don't know, take liberal views of the Bible. So, in other words, I didn't have to take it that seriously. All
right.
So, you know, so when I heard, you know, Adam and Eve and Noah's Ark and stuff like that, you know, I always thought, you know, as a kid, oh well, these are just, you know, stories. It doesn't matter if they're real or not. They're just like, they just teach kind of like moral lessons. But then, Jesus came along and he was a great moral teacher, and and that's all that really matters. Kind of like the Nate Cunningham form of Christianity. And then I was exposed to fundamentalism, and I thought, wait, you're telling me that there's people in this world that actually believe that these stories are real? You gotta be kidding me. And then but then they started having arguments for it, right? And so, oh well, okay, I have arguments for it. Well, if I want to be a rational human being, I need to have good counter arguments for it. So I started digging into it, started taking Christianity more seriously, and then then through the research, through reading books from scholars and so forth, all my original conceptions of Christianity, all the problems I had with it, were just verified through them. But then I kind of had a similar experience with Gavagai. When I was in college, I befriended a Church of Christ minister, and I really respected his character. He seemed to be a really nice, generous, thoughtful, loving guy, and I thought, well, boy, I mean, if Christianity produces this sort of character in people and so forth, maybe I need to take a second look at this. Maybe Christianity can really transforms people and so forth. So I had some Bible study with them, and all the doubts I had in the past doing Bible study, this resurfaced again, and I started seeing him harmonizing and stuff like that. Although he wasn't really a strict fundamentalist, like he was okay, like not having to believe that Moses wrote the Pentateuch, for example. He would just say, oh, it's a traditional view that he did, but it's not that important. Which I thought was pretty cool. But then I actually went to church. I never joined his church. I went just a few times, and I met the rest of his congregation, and they were just as irrational and I don't know, regular, I guess is I'll just use that word. Typical. With the So I realized that, well, it's just him. He's just putting an effort into it. And I guess as a minister, you need to make the effort to be to be a good character and be above your flock and stuff like that. Because I guess people are looking up to you. So if you don't fit that image, people aren't going to follow you. Really, you're not going to attract people to your church. But since that time, I just grown. I just studied more and more and more, and grow more and more skeptical. And when I hear fundamentalists and evangelicals give their arguments, I want to step in and argue against it. So that's what pretty much drives me.
Yeah, I immediately got kicked out of Sunday school. I think in about, it was such a long time ago, because I was in the second grade, and I remember them teaching us about Noah's Ark, because they sit there and they got the book, and they're reading the story to you and that kind of thing. That's when I learned that questions were bad. I didn't understand this at the time, but questions were bad. And, because there were some things that, you hear a story and you start asking questions. And I remember the teacher, or quote-unquote, the teacher, instructor, whatever, trying to teach us something regarding why the flood took place, or something of that nature. And I mean, obviously, like I said, it was, more than 3 decades ago, so my memory's failing me. But I remember I got her kind of irritated, because I was trying to figure out how that was, you know what I mean? Like, you're asking, like, wow, like, what did they? I asked them what they fed the animals, or something like that, because there were a lot of animals, and if you had all of them, what do you feed them, And I remember her being kind of irritated with me, vaguely, and then it made me uncomfortable, actually. I ended up not wanting to go after a couple of weeks of that, and I grew more and more fond of staying home and, like, you know, because they were Saturday morning cartoons and sometimes there was Sunday morning cartoons, and so, you know, I got real keen on just staying at home and watching cartoons, and that sort of early on, that idea that, you know, being inquisitive about things was a big turnoff for me, you know. And as I got older, you know, the default setting for morality was Christianity, right? For me, and where I grew up, you know, you hear a lot of people say, "Hey, you know, you do right, be right with God," is what the phrase is, right? Like there's some sort of, you know, that's the go-to. You know, you want to be more Christ-like or whatever. So I kind of waned in and out of being a theist and an atheist. You know, I used to believe when I was younger that when I was in bed at night going to sleep, at any point in time, if I was bad enough, the devil would come and take me. And how he would do it is the floor would open up beneath my bed, and I would just drop down into hell from my bed. You know what I mean? So I had like this fear already in me that at any point in time I could fall into the earth, you know, like instantly. And so it was stuff like that that kind of got me in and out of it over the years. But, you know, I didn't study nearly as much as Floyd or obviously like Ozzy or Dave or any, you know, I don't have those kind of chops, but you don't really need them. You know, it's nice to have them, but most of the people that you run across with are like, you know, they're like of that jungle jargon level of Christianity. At least the ones I run across, where they haven't really thought it through. You know, I got people that tell me, you know, I don't believe the God that, you know, kills people and floods the earth and this and that. I believe that Christianity God is all loving. I don't believe all the bad things. I've had people tell me that, you know, and so I don't, you know, I wish I had more of those philosophy chops, but I don't. But from a day-to-day standpoint, you don't really need them. At least I don't think so. But you know, early on, I was skeptical of the whole thing. I mean, I don't know if I mean, Gavagai came in late in the game. 30 years, that's quite an investment.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it was a point when I had finished college. I'd finished college late for one thing, but when I finished, I still considered myself a believer. You know, even though my education had significantly changed the nature of my beliefs and faith, and kind of theology in general, but it took a few years kind of stewing over those experiences in school and kind of applying a lot of the same kinds of skepticism that I had applied to other religions that I had been exposed to during that time to my own religious beliefs and faith. So that was, I guess there was kind of a little bit of a time lag there.
Doctor messaged me, said he had a story that he wanted to share, since we're all kind of sharing our stories, but he was not sure if his mic is working. So, Doctor, can you hear us? Please speak up or enter something in the chat.
Is it working now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Please don't show us your penis.
No, that's not going to happen.
Okay.
But yeah, I had a pretty unique story about my deconversion. I was raised a Ukrainian Catholic in Saskatchewan, so that's actually not Catholic at all, oddly enough. So there's actually an unspoken rule that nobody speaks about religion or politics in polite conversation or even privately among your family. So I had...
Sorry, go ahead.
Pretty well. So I was 12 years old, It's the first time that I realized that there were other religions in practice in the world today. I had no idea that Islam existed. I didn't know that there were still Jews, people practicing traditional Jewish religion. And so when I found that out, it completely shattered everything that I thought about it. And then eventually there was just a series of events that happened that led me away from the church. And then I was actually debating going back. I was actually enrolled in seminary and going to marry the girl I was dating, because in the Ukrainian Catholic Church you can actually be a priest and be married, oddly enough. And I had the wedding ring and went to propose to her, and she broke up with me right before I proposed.
Oh!
Yeah.
Oh!
There's nothing worse than like 30 minutes after you buy a ring going back to the jewelry store with like a depressed look on your face.
Oh man, sorry to hear that.
Well, I took that, and I actually thought that there's a weird rule when it comes to Ukrainian Catholic Church, is that you can be married and a priest, but they won't really let you advance beyond that. So you can't be a bishop or anything. So I took that as a sign that God was wanting me to do something greater. And that's when I really seriously started studying, and I realized that every single one of the arguments that was presented for Christianity, whether it be inerrancy of the text or revelation, any of the arguments from natural theology, could ultimately be applied to any religion. And I just kind of threw my arms up in the air and said, well, why should I believe any of it?
At that point, you were like, F it, I'm out.
Pretty well. It was actually, I was studying Zen Buddhism at the time, and there was actually like a little moment where it clicked in my head where I was reading that these little questions that they have that you're supposed to contemplate. Things like, oh, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around, does it make a sound? And I was just thinking, I was like, this is really stupid. And there was just something that clicked in my head. I was like, why would I believe in a God when there doesn't seem to be any reason to? And that's, everything just kind of fell apart from there, and I had to retrain myself to think rationally and critically. And it was after that that I found that I wasn't the only one. I had no idea that there were other atheists, even in my vicinity, let alone this entire group online.
Yeah, is this, wait, I haven't seen you. Is this one of your first times out in a hangout?
I was in a Talking Shit Tuesday a while back with Trey Jatlow.
I'm surprised you didn't get booted. That's a hard show to get into. I think in a lot of ways, I think I talk too much shit. I don't know. I believe it or not, Gabba Guy, I hold a lot back, dude, on this show.
I believe it.
There's so much I hold back on. Like, if I could, I mean, if you were to look at me from like an outwardly standpoint, you would see a guy who would. I have a big heart in the sense that I will, like if you were stranded at 3 in the morning, I'd come get you. Like I'm that guy. I'm that friend, right? I'm completely loyal, that kind of thing. And then there's another side of me that is like, that just said Jungle Dragon probably is a little downsy. You know what I mean? Like there's a guy that who just doesn't, kind of hold back. And
I think he's just mixing drugs and alcohol.
Have you heard Jungle Jargon, Doctor?
Yes, he decided to comment on one of my posts that I made.
Oh, really?
He obviously had no idea what even the word biology meant.
Are you an actual doctor?
No, I was actually going to school, deciding between going into philosophy of science or into psychology, but then I had to drop out briefly, and I'm going back in the spring.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's cool. Now you can actually be a doctor. We can actually say I know a doctor. Which is amazing. Yeah, you know, one of the things that did it for me, I think, is prayer. Because I'm like kind of a numbersy guy. I'm not good at math or anything, but I mean in the sense that, like, from a statistical standpoint, you know, and then, you know, you try praying, you know, and then you kind of realize, it's kind of like George Carlin says, you know, half the things you get, half the things you don't get, and then you just rationalize the rest, you know? Like,
so basically the G-man argument?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Except I went the other way, you know. The G-man argument. Oh, man. You know, when I started figuring out that this shit doesn't work, you know, it was a lot of things that ended up being nails in the coffin, you know, but I think truthfully, a lot of it has to do with me, with partially at least the community, you know, like I'm real into like guys that that's a sound bite I don't want you to take. I'm really into guys. I'm really into people that like are educated, you know what I mean? And so when I listen to people, I want to learn from them if they have a degree or something, or if they're, you know what I mean? Like if they are more knowledgeable about a subject, I want to learn from them, right? So I valued the community, at least on this end, because they have that education. And that's important to me, you know? I feel like there's a part of the theist side that just shucks that because they don't, for whatever, you know how they always accuse you, Gavagai, like Matt Slick said, he goes, well, you just don't like it, so that's just your subjective opinion.
Yeah.
You just don't like slavery. It's not that slavery's wrong, you know, like that kind of thing. But I think they shuck it off, and they don't really have a good reason to shuck it off, other than that it conflicts with their ideology. Or am I crazy?
No, I was in the middle of a yawn. I'm sorry. No offense. It had nothing to do with
buddy.
you. I just got up early this morning. No, yeah, I think you're right, and I mean, I think that the education and the inquiry and the questioning is all a dangerous thing to you know, faith beliefs and faith-based beliefs. So they run away from those things.
Well, it's already going to be 1, so we're sort of at the end. So I'm going to wrap this room. Thank you. Do you have anything else to say, Floyd? You just got here kind of late, so.
No. Yeah, I wish I got on earlier, but.
Any prayer requests?
Any prayer requests?
I'll take all the help I can get.
Yeah, you know, when somebody tells me, you know, they're praying for me to like find a job or something, like, I never like just sort of dismissed it, you know, like. I'm appreciative of anyone that is willing to wish me, you know, good tidings, I guess. You know what I mean? That wants to see good things happen for me. So there's an intent there. Like, I don't go, I don't pray for me to, you know, I mean, it's like, oh, thanks. You know what I mean? I don't believe that it really does anything, but it's nice to know that someone's out there at least thinking of me and wanting good things to happen. So I'm not a complete a-hole, just so you know. All right, Gavagai, I'm not a complete a-hole.
Yeah, that's correct. Yes.
Thank you. And by the way, explain this picture. What is this picture that you changed to?
That's the Gavagai story.
Okay. Is it from an existing cartoon?
It's from a thought experiment. I mean, it's just somebody's rendition of kind of some of the ideas that were contained in the thought experiment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If you go to my channel and look up what's a Gavagai, there's I kind of go into the Van Orman Quine thought experiment that my handle comes from.
Oh, okay.
So.
Well, but before we go, I will give you guys a rundown just in case Floyd or Doctor want to jump in. We went over the movie Audacity. If anybody saw that, anybody see that?
Is that the Ray Comfort movie?
Yes.
It's on YouTube. It's only about an hour long. It's pretty stupid. I don't think I have to tell you that, but
yeah, anything come from Ray Comfort.
We discussed Gavagai and Matt Slick's interaction last week. Did any of you? I don't know if either one of you saw it, but if you do you have any opinions on it?
Yeah, I mean, I I think the approach. I commented to Gavagai on this earlier. Yeah, with Matt Slick, you have to make sure you commit no logical fallacy at all. If you have to be totally serious. If you make any slight logical fallacy, he's going to jump on you right then and there and say, "Oh, you're irrational!" Right there, boom. I win. Go away.
Yeah, well, he'll also say that if you don't. So.
Yeah. And he'll always try to divert it to back to your worldview, and in a topic that he thinks he can attack. And I think pretty much the number one topic for evangelicals and fundamentalists to attack is morality. I see it almost every week. There's a hangout on Google Plus about morality, and the Christians will always just say to atheists, "You can't account for objective morality," and I'm just going to attack you with the open question. That Ozzy wrote a good bit about it this week, and it's always that. So the best way to handle Matt Slick is don't let him divert to your worldview. Just attack him on his.
Yeah.
And just keep him on topic. Don't let him divert to anything else.
Yeah, and I did do that, and I acknowledged in your responding to your comment in one of the comment threads there. You're exactly right that I allowed that conversation to completely go off track from what I started with, which was the issue of slavery in the Old Testament, and how can he rectify the idea that. And I don't know if he ever did say. I know a couple of times he actually completely dodged the question of whether or not he held slavery to be immoral.
Well, I can tell you what Matt Slick thinks about slavery.
What's that?
He thinks that it's immoral unless it's done right.
Nice. Slavery is good.
By right, do you mean by God?
It's by the biblical instruction, because it's important to remember that Matt Slick and Cy 10 are pretty well the exact same person. They just have a script to follow. It's just Matt Slick's line of arguing is better for a formal debate, and Cy 10's is better when he actually has an opportunity to interrupt people, because Cy can do it without looking like too much of an asshole. But with Matt Slick, it's all he's actually asking you to account for is how are things consistent with the nature of God. That's what he means by moral absolutes. I've been looking at the CARM website. So really it's a silly and idiotic question to ask somebody who doesn't believe in God.
Yeah. I thought Matt Slick had his views about slavery are pretty bad. He said in Hangout, although the reason why slavery is wrong is because humans are made in God's image, and you wouldn't treat God's image that way. Well, that's how they did it in the Old Testament. So
right, yeah, they weren't made in God's image in that in the Old Testament.
Yeah, so that's I would have hammered him on that.
Yeah, that was a missed opportunity on my part for sure.
Yeah, so so it sounds like deep down he knows that slavery is wrong, and he kind of just says it, but he just dances around the Old Testament. But I think that's a good attack point. If you want to attack him again, I would drill him on that and don't let him divert, and just hammer him, grind away, get him to admit things, and then boom, you got him a contradiction. Oh, I'm sorry, Matt, you're irrational. I win.
And then I did like how he tried to divert it back to his old tag argument. Down the ropes there.
He'll try to say, "Oh, well, it doesn't matter. You're an atheist. You don't have, you can't account for immorality at all. So we don't need to discuss this." Oh, no. We're discussing morality in your worldview. Sorry, Matt. No. If I find a contradiction in your worldview, you lose. That's the name of the game we're playing here.
Yeah, even Gavagai, though, we talked about that. You even said, no, Matt, according to your definition or your worldview. And how did he get out of that?
I don't
Did
remember exactly.
Did he have Len or Wingnut jump in and save him?
No, what I think he did, I think he said something condescending like, "Well, no, just follow me. I'm trying to lead you down this path to show you the error in your thinking."
Oh yeah, he does.
And then kind of tried to tease away and poke away at my moral construct and things, and I allowed him to do that. It's also kind of hard just because you're on his territory when you're in Biblethumpingwingnut's on their channel and in their hangout. So if you deviate or try to force the topic, they're gonna eventually cut you off and say, no, you're not answering the questions that it's their territory, so they kind of have the control there. But
that's what I was going to say next. I was like, it's difficult to, and this is part of the reason why I would never go on a show like that, but it's really it's really easy for them to mute you, and then say something like, well, you're just being obnoxious, Gabba guy, either answer the questions or leave, and they get kind of in that situation where you're forced to play the game that they want you to play.
Yeah, well, and I did try to do that to some extent the first time that I was on the show with the talking about the same-sex marriage and things, but it very quickly resulted in me being booted because I said I tried to insist, look, no, we're not going past this point because you have not given me the source for your article that you're saying supports your claim, and because I didn't just let him bowl forward and continue to read this article that made all these claims without saying where it was from, who was responsible for it, was it peer reviewed, and that kind of thing. They ejected me and acted like I was the bad guy, the one who was being disingenuous and things.
Yeah, well, we all know you're a bit of a fucker. Were you ever on Slick's show, Floyd?
No, never.
Okay.
I don't even know how to get on.
Isn't
it on like Sundays at 10 p.m. Eastern?
Yeah. I think it's tonight. Because the other guy said he may go on later again.
Yeah, I think they start at probably 7 or 8 Eastern time, probably closer to 7 p.m. and then they go for an hour or two, depending on I don't know what. I don't think I've ever watched a whole show. So much of it is just those guys kissing each other's butts and stuff. I can't listen to it. It's hard enough listening to it when there's a person with sense and on there with whom I agree that's giving a counterpoint to their nonsense. But when there's nobody on there and it's just Matt Slick answering questions of Christians and things, it's just like, blah.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't get I can't for the life of me figure out why you guys torture yourselves with that stuff. But I don't know. Floyd, if you ever do go on, I think you're going to end up frustrated.
Yeah. Well, because if I did go on, I would go on with an agenda, with an argument. I would be prepared beforehand, so I know exactly what I'm going to say. And I guess the best thing to do is to have an argument based on what Matt Slick had said in the past. So you can say, Matt, you said A, B, and C. Okay, well, if you believe this, this, and this, and you believe in A and B and do this, okay, you have a contradiction right there. Solve it right now on camera. and just press them, grind them, and don't let them divert, and then and I assume I'll be booted within 5 minutes.
Yeah, because what'll end up happening is he'll be like, wait a minute now, are you an atheist, or whatever, and you know what I mean, and then he'll start along that path, and then he'll never actually get to your question.
Yeah.
And that's the thing why it's so frustrating, because they're so just disingenuous. They're just like, I think it was Eric or one of the guys that comes on who said he spoke to Len outside of a live hangout, and he said he was a really good guy or something. Did anyone remember him saying that, or am I crazy? I thought it was him. But anyway, if not, I apologize. But
is Len Matthew 419?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he seems to be a lot better. Like if you're just chatting with him privately, or either in a hangout or just talking on posts, he's much more patient, kind,
civil. Yes.
Yeah. When Matt, Slick, and Tim aren't around.
Have you both spoken to him outside of that, and where he has that, you know?
Yeah, he used to participate in just hangouts in the community and things. You know, a year or two ago, he was, you know, that was before they had Matt Slick on the show, and he was reasonable as far as just he wasn't as rude, and he just tried to present his position. I think he did, you know, probably a piss poor job of it a lot of times, because he just doesn't have the education background and things that, you know, he would need to even begin to support it. Which is why they've brought Matt Slick in. I don't know how they orchestrated that or whatever, but and since that time, it's just been them just standing behind him, making faces at people, essentially.
It's kind of funny because he's like he's like the me of this panel. Maybe we have a lot in common. That's why I don't like him so much. I can't stand that guy. He's the worst out of all of them, I think. Like, he's like my least favorite person on that show. I really have a strong dislike for him as a person. Well, have I ever spoken to him outside of, you know, the Google Plus forum or whatever? No. But I did do a video on him, like, way back when he was still up on Size Jock. And I did a video called Matthew 419 Shows His Ignorance. And it was a clip of him arguing about evolution or something like that. And, you know, it's the whole mischaracterization of evolution. It's Pokemon evolution kind of thing, like Dragonaut says, like they believe in Pokemon evolution. And he made some comment, like something about coming on or discussing it with him, and I think I said, well, you know, if you have a coherent argument, sure, you know, or something like that. And then he kind of explained a little bit, and I was like, yeah, I said a coherent argument, dude. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I asked a couple questions. It just never panned out, you know, so I never really spoke to him. And I didn't really consider the presuppositional position like a coherent argument at the time, so especially how they were using it. So although I'm on a webpage right now that has something called the Golden Douchebag Trophy, I was like, it's ironic because we're talking about Matthew 4:19 when I scrolled across this right now. But so anyway, well, this looks like a good place to end it. Thanks everyone for showing up. Yeah. Any last words before I shut her down? No? God, you're a talkative bunch. All right, everybody, we will see you in 2 weeks. For everyone that had a hangout this morning, don't do it again. Our next show will be on the 13th. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a good one.
Woo!